was the centerpiece of this week's cabinet shuffle, Chrystia Freeland replacing Stéphane Dion as Minister of Foreign Affairs. The timing, a week before Donald Trump is sworn in as president, is to many people a sign that the Trudeau government is repositioning itself with the United States. It's less clear what Freeland's role means for the future of Canada's relationship with Russia. For now, at least, the new foreign minister is barred from visiting that country. Chrystia Freeland joins us this morning from our Ottawa studio.
Great to be with you, Matt. And I'm looking forward to that skating report because I'm going skating at Ramsden Park with my kids and their classmates on Sunday.
The ice,
so it should be a good skating weekend.
I'm told the ice is great, so we shall see. I think it's fair to say we have never seen anyone quite like the incoming president-elect. He was tweeting this morning talking about sleazebag political operatives. He will, a week from today, be the president of the United States. What goes through your mind when you think about interacting with him and his administration?
Well, Matt, the first thing I think about is the very strong relationship that Canada and the United States have. And that is a relationship which has endured many changes of government in both Canada and the United States. I think it is the best and strongest relationship of any two countries anywhere in the world. Think about our long, undefended border. Think about the fact that we have the biggest trading relationship in the world. We do more than $2.5 billion worth of trade every day across our border. And Canada is the biggest export market for 35 U.S. states. 9 million U.S. jobs depend on the Canadian market. So what I think about is how deep, how multi-layered, and how strong the ties are between our two countries.
And what do you think about when it comes to the president-elect?
I think about what I just said. I think that, it's very important for Canadians to understand, and I think Canadians do understand, what a deep, strong relationship our countries have.
But you talked about
that.
You
That's
talked
a relationship that is going, that has endured for a very long time, and it's going to continue to endure and to flourish.
You talked about that deep, strong relationship without mentioning Donald Trump's name or the fact that he's going to be the president of the United States. That relationship is a long one, and it has endured in a number of administrations. Would you concede that this administration, or at the very least the person who is leading the administration, is a rather different beast?
I think I wouldn't call any head of state of any country a beast.
Well, it's in terms of characterization, a different
Matt,
individual.
I was just teasing you. Let me take that liberty as a former journalist. Look, I think that it is not a surprise. It's very evident for both Canadians and Americans that in many ways, Canadians have made political choices quite different from those made most recently in the United States. We have a prime minister who is proud to call himself a feminist. We have a country that is very proud, and this is one of the things I'm the most proud of about us as a country, that we're so proud to be open to immigration. In my riding, I have so many groups of people sponsoring Syrian refugees coming to our country, and that is a very distinctive Canadian choice. Having said that, I am really confident that the strong security and particularly economic relationship between Canada and the United States is mutually beneficial. That's something our government recognizes. It's something Canadians recognize. And it's something I'm confident that the incoming U.S. administration does and will recognize too.
There has been work done already to try and find common ground with that incoming administration. What can you tell us about that?
Well, as you say, and as I think Canadians would expect, our government has been working hard to develop some personal connections with some of the leading voices in the new administration, in the president-elect's team. We've been focusing particularly on those shared economic interests, on that mutually beneficial trading relationship. And, for all the differences between our countries and our governments, we do have a very strong shared interest in middle-class jobs and growth.
And that will be enough to move through any of the political obstacles or the difficulties that may be faced by, as you said, the very different political views of that incoming administration?
I think that shared focus is a very important starting point. And I really do think that Canadians absolutely get that. I think Canadians really understand how central our economic relationship is with the United States. I think with every American government, one of our jobs as a Canadian government is to explain to Americans just how important we and our economy is to them. You know, it's a classic Canadian situation where we think more about them than they think about us. And that's some of the work that we're going to be doing in the days and weeks to come.
Let's talk about another giant issue in your file, and that is Russia. You know Russia very well. You lived there. You worked there as a journalist. You've had a contentious relationship, if I can put it that way, with Vladimir Putin, and you're barred from entering that country. Do you expect that ban to continue?
That really isn't a question for me or for Canada, Matt. That's a question for Russia.
As I understand it, there was an offer to rescind the ban if Canada drops sanctions against Russia. Is that accurate?
I can only go by the press reports that I've read, just as you have. And I've read those same press reports.
Will Canada look at lifting those sanctions so that you can, or look at some sort of arrangement so that you can actually go and visit one of the most powerful nations in the world?
We wouldn't look at lifting sanctions. The sanctions were imposed by the previous government, but with strong support from us in opposition, in response to very clear violations of international law by Russia with the invasion and annexation of Crimea, and support for a war against Ukraine in the Donbass. So those sanctions are there for a reason. But I will say, Matt, that I feel very able to, whatever the Russian position on my travel, and I do love Moscow very much as a city. I enjoyed living there. I feel very able as Canada's foreign minister to talk with Russia and with Russians in Russian. And in fact, I had quite a long conversation with President Putin in Lima in November. I happened to be at the APEC forum sitting in for the Prime Minister on a panel, and President Putin happened to be the Russian representative there. So I've spoken with the top guy in Russia quite recently, and we spoke in Russian, and we had quite a long conversation.
What do you make of the allegations that have been swirling around that Donald Trump could be susceptible to blackmail by the Russians?
I haven't had any briefings on those, so I'm not going to comment on such a sensitive security matter.
Intelligence officials, British intelligence officials, have said that this could be very credible. And I'm just wondering, based on what you know about Russia, what should we know about what it is trying to do in terms of establishing its place in the world in 2017?
Well, look, I mean, on the specific security issues, I think those are a matter for security officials. Those are things that, you know, journalists can allow themselves a certain latitude in commenting on. But as Canada's foreign minister, I can only comment based on briefings from our officials, which I haven't had yet on that specific issue. You know, I think when it comes to Russia in the world, it's clear that Russia is an important player. I support and have supported from the outset our government's commitment to re-engage with Russia, to have a conversation with Russia. But equally, as the Prime Minister said on Tuesday, we as a government remain firmly opposed to the very clear and very wrong violations of international law by Russia, particularly when it comes to the invasion of Crimea and the annexation of Crimea,
so if the United
and the
States
ongoing war in the Donbass. And I will say, as you know, Matt, Rex Tillerson, the nominee for Secretary of State,
right,
was before the Senate this week, and he said that he is in favor at the moment for the maintaining of sanctions. General Mattis, who is the nominee to run the Pentagon, was even stronger in talking about the U.S. position on Russia.
If the U.S. does have a closer relationship with Russia, and I know that based on what you said, that could be in question, but if it does look at establishing a closer relationship, where does that leave us?
Matt, I think it's always a mistake for political leaders to talk about hypotheticals. So let's take things as they develop. But I do want to assure Canadians that Canada has and will continue to have a very strong, a very engaged, but a very clear voice on the international stage. And above all, my central job as foreign minister, and the Prime Minister has been very clear about this, is to speak strongly and forcefully in defense of the national interest, always thinking about our Canadian middle class and jobs and growth.
But
that's what I'm going to do.
Always thinking as well about how every word that you say can have an international but also national effect. And just finally, I just wonder how difficult is that to
I tried
manage?
to think about that when I was Minister of Trade, Matt. I tried not to speak too loosely.
I hope we have the pleasure to talk again soon.
Don't you think, right?
It's just got to be a very difficult balancing act. There are things that you perhaps know that you can say, that you have to be careful about what you say. And you, I mean, now in this position, not that the other position was any less, but now in this position, there is the real opportunity to help shape, as you say, Canada's national interest and our influence around the world.
Yeah, and I mean, look, Matt, just to your final point, which I think was a really thoughtful and serious one, the big change for me, not so much in being sworn in this week to this job, which is a huge honor and a privilege, and I want to thank the Prime Minister and congratulate my colleagues, but was really in moving from being a journalist to being an elected politician and then to being a cabinet minister. And that is, words do matter. And I think Canadians expect their leaders to weigh their words carefully, which is what I'm going to try to do. Congratulations on the new position. And we'll chat again, I'm sure. Okay, thanks a lot. And will I see you at Ramsden? You'll see me on some ice somewhere. Okay. I'm choosing my rink carefully. Okay. That's Chrystia Freeland.